everybody. Welcome. I don't have my microphone, so I'll just talk loud. Before we begin, just want to thank you so much for coming out and supporting our independent bookstore. It's only with your support that we're able to have these amazing author events, so we very much appreciate it. Mac and John will be signing their books right over here following the presentation. How we're going to do it is we will start with the front row and then release so you can get in line, and then we'll release after that. And the kids can certainly do the project while you're waiting for your books to be signed. So we are so beyond excited to welcome Barnett and Jon Klassen, the dream team of picture book creators. Honestly, in the book world, they are the Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, but so far
I'm Keith. Yeah, I'm Keith.
Awesome. Today they'll be introducing their brand new book, Triangle, which is the first in their Shape trilogy. And I have to say, it takes some kind of genius to make this triangle, just a triangle with eyes, look so sneaky and hilarious. The day that we opened it up and read it, we were just all laughing hysterically. So I know you guys are really going to love it. Mac Barnett is a New York Times bestselling author of more than 10 picture books, including The Terrible 2, as well as the 2013 Caldecott Honor for Extra Yarn, which won the 2012 Boston Globe Horn Book Award for Excellence in Picture Books, and that was illustrated by Jon Klassen. We also have that book in back. He was born in 1982 to non-farmers in a California farming community. Now he lives in Berkeley, so that's pretty cool. Jon Klassen is the creator of the #1 New York Times bestseller, I Want My Hat Back, which was named the Theodore Seuss Geisel Honor Book, New York Times Book Review Best Illustrated Children's Book of the Year, and a Publisher's Weekly Best Children's Book of the Year. Pretty awesome. He returned with another hat and another thief in This Is Not My Hat, which won the Caldecott Medal and became a New York Times bestseller. He's also the illustrator of The House Held Up by Trees, a picture book written by Pulitzer Prize-winning poet Ted Kaiser, as well as Cat's Night Out by Carolyn Stuxen, which won the Governor General's Award, and as I said, Extra Yarn, and then also Sam and Dave Dig a Hole, illustrated by our poet Mac Barnett, and the Incorrigible Children of Ashton Place series by Mary Rose Bush. So, can we give a warm rock star welcome?
Oh, man! Thank you so much, and thanks for coming. How's everybody doing? Good, good, good. My name is Matt. I am John. And I am an author. I am an author-illustrator. Well, both those things. Well, and a braggart. What does that mean if I'm an author? What's an author's job? What does an author do? Yeah. I write stories. That's exactly right. What does an author-illustrator do more? Yeah. He writes and draws. Emphasis on the and draws pictures. That's pretty special, John. It's true. It's true. Sometimes John writes stories and draws the pictures for them, like this one. I did this one. I Want My Hat Back. I Want My Hat Back. This one. This Is Not My Hat. And this one. We Found a Hat. But even though John's an author, you can tell he doesn't know that many words. There's something about, you know, what you do with them. There's a line I remember. I can't remember how it goes, but it's a smart line. And then I made some books with people who weren't John. Many of whom were nicer than John. President Taft is Stuck in the Bath with Chris Van Dusen. This is my political thriller. Noisy Night, which is illustrated by Brian Biggs. We actually came here. Anybody come see us? Thank you so much for coming back. One. Yes. Not a bad return. So obviously it was great last time. Yeah. And then I read this. This is a chapter book series called The Terrible 2. But John and I make, somebody can applaud for that. Oh, they were just slapping the back of the chair. If I hear applause ever, I just think it's for me and encourage people to do more of it. So, somebody psyched me out. Thanks. Yeah, what was that, John?
It's just clasping.
All right.
Not clapping.
All right. But John and I have made 3 books together. Our 3rd book together just came out. And we thought we would read you all 3 this afternoon. I'm just going to go through the oeuvre.
Yeah, it's not a good word.
Yeah. Glad I don't know it. So the first one is this one right here. Extra yarn. Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good
And John, maybe you should read this one.
Oh, I get to read your many words?
Yeah, I would like to hear that.
Oh, I'm honored. Okay, I'll read this one. This one's called Extra Yarn. It's by some guy, and I drew the pictures. And there's the information again. Here's the first page. On a cold afternoon, in a cold little town, where everywhere you looked was either the white of snow or the black of soot from chimneys, Annabelle found a box filled with yarn of every color. We can go back and look at the picture for a little longer if you want.
Nice.
Yeah. So she went home and knit herself a sweater. And when Annabelle was done, she had some extra yarn. So she knit a sweater for Mars, too. But there was still extra yarn. And when Annabelle and Mars went for a walk, Nate pointed and laughed and said, "You two look ridiculous." "You're just jealous," said Annabelle. "No, I'm not," said Nate. But it turned out he was. And even after she'd made a sweater for Nate and his dog, and for herself, and for Mars, she still had extra yarn. At school, Annabelle's classmates could not stop talking about her sweater. "Quiet," shouted Mr. Norman. "Quiet, everyone. Annabelle, that sweater of yours is a terrible distraction. I cannot teach with everyone turning around to look at you." "Then I'll knit one for everyone," Annabelle said, "so they won't have to turn around." "Impossible," said Mr. Norman. "You can't." It's a very shouty village. But it turned out she could, and she did, even for Mr. Norman. And when she was done, Annabelle still had extra yarn. So she knit sweaters for her mom and dad, and for Mr. Pendleton, and Mrs. Pendleton, and for Dr. Palmer, and for little Louis. She made sweaters for everyone, except Mr. Crabtree, who never wore sweaters, or even long pants, and who would stand in his shorts with the snow up to his knees. "No sweater for me, thanks," said Mr. Crabtree. So she made Mr. Crabtree a hat, and even then, Annabelle still had extra yarn. She made sweaters for all the dogs, and all the cats, and all the other animals too, and for the other animals too. Soon, people thought, soon Annabelle will run out of yarn. But it turned out she didn't. So Annabelle made sweaters for things that didn't even wear sweaters. Things began to change in that little town. We can go back to the mountain for a minute, too.
It's a nice one. Also a nice one.
It's a nice drawing. You just go through them so fast. News spread of this remarkable girl who never ran out of yarn, and people came to visit from around the world to see all the sweaters and to shake Annabelle's hand. One day, an archduke who was very fond of clothes sailed across the sea and demanded to see Annabelle. I have many talents, but reading the Archduke's voice is Mac's forte, so he's going to read the Archduke's line as we discussed in the car on the way here.
Little girl,
Said the Archduke.
I would like to buy that miraculous box of yarn, and I'm willing to offer you $1 million.
"No, thank you," said Annabelle, who was knitting a sweater for a pickup truck. The Archduke's mustache twitched.
$2 million.
He said. Annabelle shook her head. "No, thanks."
$10 million.
Shouted the Archduke.
Take it or leave it.
"Leave it," said Annabelle. "I won't sell the yarn." And she didn't. So that night, the Archduke hired 3 robbers to break into Annabelle's house, and they stole the box, and they took it to the Archduke, who set off across the snow and sailed over the sea, back to his castle. The Archduke put on his favorite song and sat in his best chair. Then he took out the box, and he lifted its lid, and he looked inside. His mustache quivered. It shivered. It trembled. The Archduke hurled the box out the window and shouted,
Little girl, I curse you with my family's curse. You will never be happy again.
But it turned out she was. That's the end of Extra Yarn.
A big round of applause for Jon Klassen for you. we made another book. And we thought we would be done. This is the second book we made together. It's called Sam and Dave Dig a Hole. So there it is. Sam and Dave Dig a Hole. Me. Not even by me. Not even words are written by, just me.
Like a punch in the face.
Illustrated by Jon Klassen.
Very much more sophisticated.
Now for this book, I need everybody to use your best evil eyes. Because even though the words in this book are beautiful and accomplished and genius, somebody said genius. I think I heard it. Thank you. The pictures are good too. Sam and Dave dig a hole. On Monday, Sam and Dave dug a hole. When should we stop digging? Asked Sam. We are on a mission, said Dave. We won't stop digging until we find something spectacular. They dug until their heads were underground, but they still had not found anything spectacular. So they kept digging. They took a break. Dave drank chocolate milk out of a canteen. Sam ate animal cookies he had wrapped in their grandfather's kerchief. Maybe, said Dave, the problem is that we are digging straight down. Yes, said Sam, that could be the problem. I think we should dig in another direction, said Dave. Yes, said Sam, that is a good idea. I have a new idea, said Dave. Let's split up. Really, said Sam. Just for a little while, said Dave. It will help our chances. So Dave went one way, and Sam went another, but they did not find anything spectacular. Maybe we should go back to digging straight down, said Dave. Yes, said Sam. That is a good idea. Sam and Dave ran out of chocolate milk, but they kept digging. They shared the last animal cookie, but they kept digging. After a while, Sam sat down. Dave, he said, I'm tired. I cannot dig anymore. I am tired too, said Dave. We should take a rest. Sam and Dave fell asleep. Then Sam and Dave were falling. Sam and Dave fell down, 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 until they landed in the soft dirt. Well, said Sam. Well, said Dave. That was pretty spectacular. And they went inside for chocolate milk and animal cookies. The end. Now, I have a question. Did anybody notice anything strange about the end of this book? Yes. That's a good point. She has a great point. At the beginning, when they left their house, there was an apple tree in the front yard. But then when they landed, it's a pear tree. Nice spot. Nice spot. Did you notice something? What did you notice?
First, there's a butterfly on there. Now there's a bee on there.
Oh.
First there's a flower, then a bee.
Oh, it does look a little bit like a bee, but that's actually how Jon Klassen draws a daisy. But it changed. It did change. Nice job. The flower was a red tulip, and now it's a blue daisy. Yeah, what did you notice?
I think that was even because they just fell out of the sky.
Now that's very weird, right? They fell out of the sky when they were digging into the ground. That's a very strange clue that something is weird. Yeah. The weather vane?
Yeah. It used to be a chicken, now it's a duck.
That's right, it was a chicken, and now it's a duck.
You can't trust a duck.
Did you notice something else? The collar, that's exactly right. The collar, here it's red, and this cat wears a blue collar. And of course, if they landed right where they started, what's missing? The hole. Yeah, absolutely. There we go. This kid with the beard. Yeah.
Did you say beer or beard?
Beard. Yeah. Now, it's very strange. I like this. You know, with John's book, the eyes are always so big. You gotta watch the eyes, especially the animal's eyes. I like if you go back one more spread. See, this is when the dog notices. And he's like, oh, that's a different tree. And then he's like, oh, that's a different cat. And the cat's like, yeah, I know that. So the question is, John, why did you mess up the pictures in this book so bad? No, I'm sorry, the question is, where are they? Where did they end up? What do you think? Does anybody have any theories? Any ideas where they might have ended up? Yeah. A different house, for sure, yeah. How about you in yellow? Do you have a theory? A different house? Yeah, cool, yeah. Oh, maybe they were dreaming. Yeah, that's a possibility. Yeah. In the back there, yeah.
I go, yeah, you try your head, right?
Yeah, that's a good theory. How about you? So when they're moving around, they kind of change things up? Yeah.
We did something unscientifically proven.
Something unscientifically proven. That's about it. You're exactly right about that. Yeah. It is clear that we are not dealing in the world of science in this book. Yeah.
I would say we are to some very fringe science that only people subscribe to.
Yeah, John likes to call it science.
I like
yeah. Now, I'll give you one little clue. There's one more little thing here.
That's not it. That's not it.
Where is it? Can I bring it over here?
You have it.
No, behind you. So, I'll show you there are a couple more little secrets to look for in this book. Now, at the front end and the back end of a book, to cover it up, because a book, this hardcover, is actually just a thick piece of cardboard. But to cover it up, they put some paper on the front, and then they also put paper at the front end and the back end, and they're called the end papers. Sometimes the illustrators get to draw things on the end papers. Sometimes they don't. But John still gets to pick the colors of the end papers. So here are the end papers in the front, and here are the end papers in the back. Anybody notice anything about these? Yeah. Two different colors. And why do you think John picked these colors? Oh yeah, they look like dirt. John needed to hear it. Yeah. They're important to the story, that's true. Can you think of anything in the story that's this color and this color? Yeah. Dirt. So here we go. Here's another little clue. There's that. And the pears. That's right. And here, even after this dirt back end paper, there's still, the book is not over. A lot of people don't see this. The last thing we see is that first cat with the red collar. Yeah, still looking down that hole, wondering the same thing we are. Where did those guys go? It's a very strange way to end the story. But the story is over.
It is over.
When we were talking about that dog, John, will you show us some dog tricks? Sit.
Yeah, I'll sit. We can show some dog tricks. I thought we might do some drawing on the computer. Sam and Dave Dig a Hole was done with colored pencils mostly, but we can't do that on a big, huge screen, and so I thought we'd use the computer to kind of fake it. But I wanted to talk about the dog's eyes a little bit, but before we talk about the dog's eyes, we have to draw a dog to put eyes into. And so this dog, what we're going to do is kind of draw him, but more like cut him out. This is how I do a lot of these shapes. It's sort of, you think in shapes instead of drawn lines. And so the dog's head and his whiskers are done, and there's his ears. And he'll be sitting for this drawing because I don't want to get into anatomy too much. So he's more of a loaf of bread than a dog. And there's his tail. And then we got to pick a color for the dog, and the dog was sort of a mustardy color. So we can pick all these colors that are in that square right here. All of these ones, and I think we're going to go down a little further. Oh, that's maybe too red. There, that's better. And then we have a paintbrush, and that's this circle right here, and this dog's just going to disappear just for a second while we color him in, but he's still there. Then we color him in, and we can kind of, if we press harder, it'll get darker in certain areas that we want it to, like the tail, and maybe this part of the head. And then we choose other darker colors, maybe something a little warmer, because this dog has some spots, if memory serves. And maybe one ear is in shadow because it's further away, even though that doesn't really make much sense. And then there's a tail, and then there was 2 legs, I think. And these are very well researched legs.
John actually majored in dog anatomy. Yeah.
I wasted 8 years. And then there's a nose, which will be black, so you can see it. And there's a collar, I think, too.
Does anybody remember what color the dog's collar is? Yeah. Red. Yes, exactly right.
This is why it's terrifying to be a picture book illustrator, because if you make a mistake in a picture book, you can always sort of go to sleep thinking, well, the kids don't really look at anything. Red collar. So, after this is all done, we have to do the eyes. And the eyes are, as Max said, a very important part of this dog. So we're going to zoom in so we can take care of them very carefully. So these eyes, 1 eye, 2 eyes. And at first, these are just going to look like holes in his head. Ah! If you guys ever see a dog that looks like this coming towards you, run away very fast. And now we're going to choose some pupils. And the pupils are very important. 1 pupil. Oh, that's not very good. Let's fix that. There. 2 pupils. And the pupils can tell whole stories just by themselves. There he is. So he seems, at the moment, to be a little surprised to be here. But we can do all sorts of things with this dog. We can kind of make him feel a bunch of different ways just by moving those things around. So if he looks surprised to be here, or shocked, or maybe like he's been caught doing something, maybe he's been caught stealing a car. And we say, dog, did you steal a car? The dog didn't have a name. It's just dog. Yeah. Dog, did you steal a car? And he looks right at us like this and he says, no. You kind of believe him, and he looks a little shifty about it. But then if we say, dog, did you steal a car? He says, no. Do you believe that dog now? I don't believe that dog. When you tell a lie, when you're lying to somebody, it's very hard to look right at them. Next time you lie, keep track of this. It's really easy. You say, hey, Matt, ask me a question that I would lie to.
John, did you steal a car?
No. See, I can't even look at Mac. I'm so ashamed of myself, both for stealing the car and for lying about it. And so, dog. Yes, what? A lot of people say they saw you steal that car. And then he starts to look around. He says, well, who saw me steal the car? He begins to look very suspicious. He starts to look very, very nervous. He says, I don't remember anybody stealing this car. I don't even know what a car is. And he starts to look really... So you can do this. We haven't changed the dog at all. We're just moving those little dots around. And so Mac and I started talking about this. And we liked these eye movements a lot. And we thought, what if we made a book about characters that were just eyes? Like almost nothing else as far as character design or colors picking or anything. And so at first I said, yeah, let's do that. Let's just do this.
I said, John, that is not a book.
I said, I'll make it a book. I'm good enough for that. But Mac didn't think I was. And so what we tried to do instead is we said, well, what's some really basic things? What's like the most basic kind of character you can get?
Yeah, let's forget the nose.
Forget the nose, forget everything.
Ears.
And we said,
Dog's body.
you have to be able to tell them apart, right? If there's more than one character, they can't all just be lumps. We wouldn't know who was who. You guys would get lost. And so we thought, well, we could just do shapes. You guys already know shapes, squares, triangles, things like that. So we thought, well, we'll just make a square. Let's do a square guy. And so when you put eyes on a square, you put them right in the middle because the square is sort of even on all sides. You can color him in. Those eyes are a little small on square right now, I think. Maybe we can shrink that square so it better fits. That's better. And there's square. Try square. And then he has legs, of course, because square wouldn't really be able to get around otherwise. He's just sitting there. So he's standing with two little legs. Again, 8 years of square anatomy. So there's square. And we thought, well, if we're going to have different shapes, if we're going to have a circle, for instance, the eyes could probably go in the middle too, because they'd go right in the middle, right? Circles are nice and round and even, and so you put the eyes right in the middle. But then we thought we should have a triangle. What are we going to do about a triangle? So I said, well, that's easy. We just cut them off. Oh, wait, I didn't do very well. There we go. Oh, it's still all crooked. Shouldn't have had so much coffee. There, that's about as good as we're going to get. So, we delete part of the square, but now our eyes are too high up, right? So we have to move them down. And remember what happens when you move eyes down? The character looks like a little shifty. He looks sneakier, doesn't he? Right away. Just because we had to make room for those eyes. And so we thought, well, we're all well on our way already. This is basically a book written.
Yeah, and yes, you can applaud for that. Absolutely. That was definitely an applause. And yeah, we started this book at noon. 12:08, we were like, good, done. Great, that's the book.
We're on the way today.
Yeah. And then, yeah, so we decided, hey, look at this sneaky triangle. You know what? Let's write a story about this guy. And this triangle, you got a copy over there, hold it up. Yeah, this is our new book together, Triangle.
And there's triangle in front, and there's triangle's front. And we figured since the story is, like the title is triangle, we didn't even need to write that down because I just ask you what shape that is, and you give me the title, right? And our names aren't important, so we didn't put those on there either, but they're on the spine. Anyway,
Let's read it.
yeah.
Triangle. By us. This is Triangle. This is Triangle's house. This is Triangle in his house. And that is Triangle's door. One day, Triangle walked out his door and away from his house. He was going to play a sneaky trick on Square. He walked past small triangles, and medium triangles, and big triangles. He walked past shapes that weren't triangles anymore. They were shapes with no names. He walked until he got to a place where there were squares. Still thinking of his sneaky trick, he walked past big squares, and medium squares, and small squares, until he got to Square's house. Now, said Triangle, I will play my sneaky trick. Triangle walked up to Square's door and said, "Sss," just like a snake. Square was afraid of snakes. Oh me, oh my, said Square. Go away, you snake! Leave my door! Said Triangle. Can we get some hisses? Oh dear, 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 said Square. How many snakes are out there? 10? 10 million? Go away, snakes! Triangle could not hiss anymore. He was laughing too hard. Triangle, said Square. Is that you? Yes, said Triangle. I know you are afraid of snakes. I have played a sneaky trick on you. Pretty good. Square ran after triangle, past small squares and medium squares and big squares. He ran past the shapes with no names, past the big triangles and medium triangles and small triangles, up to Triangle's house and right through his door. Almost. You are stuck! Triangle laughed and laughed. Then he stopped. His house was all dark. Triangle was afraid of the dark. It's too dark, said Triangle. You're blocking my light. Go away, you block! Leave my door! It was Square's turn to laugh. I know you are afraid of the dark. Now I have played a sneaky trick on you. You see, Triangle? This was my plan all along. But do you really believe him? And that is the end of that story. So, we just showed you 3 books. Now we'd like to see if you have any questions about those books, why we made them the way we did, any of the other books we've written, being an author or being an illustrator and author, or anything. Anything you're curious about, we would do our best to answer. How about right there? Yeah.
Why did the dog in the end not have a collar?
Why did the dog in the end not have a collar? He actually, you mean at the very end of this book?
He does have a collar.
He was wearing his collar still.
It's pretty hard to see.
It's hard to see. It's a little hard to see, but it's there.
It's a bad illustration.
Yeah. The dog's really dirty at the end, as you know.
We can talk to the printer about it. It's usually their fault.
Yeah. Why is there silver right here?
Man, she's got good questions. That is a prize, because it was a good book. So says 12 people we'll never meet.
So we get to put a sticker on the book. Yeah. Yeah, in the back right corner in the pink fleece. Oh, next to you. Sorry, and then we'll get to you. Yep. You love the books. Round of applause for that. All right, and why do you put the eyes all the same in all the books?
Well, I don't. They are a little different, although in the last 2 books, they're pretty much the same. In Extra Yarn, they're a little different. We can go back, because that's a good question. There are reasons for that. If we go all the way back to the beginning of our thing today, we will go look at Extra Yarn. Extra Yarn, the eyes are dot eyes. See? They're just little dots. And that's mostly because these characters don't have to look around very much. It's hard to show where these guys would be looking because the dots would have to move a little bit. It would look kind of funny. And also, the people in this book are the same color as the paper behind them because I hate drawing people. I needed a trick to trick me into drawing them. And so the dot eyes, I never had to draw people for a book before this one. So I thought, well, let's make it easy on myself as possible. But then after this book, when we did Sam and Dave Dig a Hole, all the way forward, they have white parts of their eyes and then pupils. And that's because it's important where Sam and Dave are looking. We need to know that they're not looking over at the diamond, that they're looking down. And the dog's eyes are important because we need to know where the dog is looking, that he's right at the diamond. And also, Sam and Dave get very dirty as the book goes on. They get dirtier and dirtier because they're digging this hole, and they get darker and darker. But if their eyes were just dots at the end of this book, they would get blended into the dirt, and you wouldn't see them, and they just look like they'd have like just dirt all over their eyes, and I wouldn't know what to do with that. And so, also what has to happen is they have to look sleepy. Their eyes have to half close. On this page, they're getting tired. And so their eyes need to do that, and so they have white parts of their eyes. With Triangle, it was the same way. Oh yeah, so their eyes close all together here, and then they wake up. They wake up very slowly, and their eyes start to wake up, so you need to be able to see that. And that'd be very hard to do with dot eyes. For a Triangle, if he had dot eyes, well, you couldn't see much of anything. He'd just be a weird shape walking around with no eyes at all.
He would just be a triangle.
Yeah, he'd be a triangle, sure. But I am using these kinds of eyes more and more because they're very clear. You're sitting way in the back, and if we show you what triangle looks like even there, you can kind of see what he's looking like, right? And that's because he has white around his eyes. It's very high contrast, and so you can see it when presenting it like this, or when someone's holding the book for a class or something like that. I like that sort of way of drawing eyes a lot. That's a good question.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Does the bear eat the rabbit in his book?
Oh, yeah. And I want my hat back. Does the bear eat the rabbit?
Yes. Yes, he does. That rabbits eat.
Yes.
Why did you decide to be
Why did I decide to be an author? 3 reasons. I love reading books, I love telling stories, and I love sleeping in. And authors do all 3 of those things. I get to read all the time. Even though I'm a writer, I don't write every day, but I read every day for hours. The more books you read, the better you get at writing, and that doesn't stop when you graduate from school.
You can copy a lot of people that you read.
When I tell stories, I get to tell stories not just to people who can hear my voice, but to people across the country, or even around the world. Sometimes my stories get translated into languages that I can't even speak, and I can tell a story to a kid who, if I met that kid, we wouldn't be able to have a conversation, but we can, because it's put in a book. That feels amazing. And then I never have to set an alarm clock. That feels even more amazing.
Except for today.
Yeah.
Early.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Yes. You're making a book at home? Very cool.
Yeah.
Why do you not show triangles on?
Oh, good question. Why do you not show triangles on? Our theory with triangle and square is that they have arms when they need them. Only them. Which would be handy, right? You wouldn't have to have sleeves or anything. But, yeah, so he's waving here. But I don't think in the rest of the book that they have arms very often. He doesn't have them there. He doesn't really pick anything up. In the next book.
Yeah, the next book is Square. And that'll come out next year.
And Square has a lot of work to do, so he'll have arms in that book, but
Yeah.
we won't explain how that. Actually, it's kind of gross to think about growing arms.
Yeah. But he's going to need them. Yeah.
I love this book. It's really funny. How long do you guys work on the visual jokes and just the story of it?
Yeah. How long? When I work with John, it's different because we talk a lot throughout the process. And so we will work out visual jokes together. And normally when I write something, I write it, and I try to write visual jokes into it, but then I'll hand it off to an illustrator, and they'll work on it for a discrete period of time. Sometimes we don't talk at all. Sometimes there's an email back and forth. But when John and I did this book together, Extra Yarn, we did it sort of the way you're supposed to go. I wrote it first, then John took it. This book,
The better jokes in Extra Yarn were my idea.
yeah. And this book was, I wrote it first, but then it changed a lot while John was working on it. And we talked every day and figured out new visual jokes and things that John did. I would rewrite the text to accommodate, and he'd ask me for input on illustrations, and it was the most impact any illustrators had on a text that I wrote, and it's the most impact I feel like I've had on pictures. Triangle was another thing altogether. From the start, I feel like it was just a period of time when we were both working on this book.
Yeah. There's a reason why we don't really attribute anything in this one, because it really was sort of a mind meld with this one.
Yeah. And in terms of length of time,
it varies a lot.
Yeah.
Extra Yarn was pretty straightforward. It was probably like 8 months or something. Sam and Dave, you wrote it relatively fast, but my illustrations took forever because we were trying to figure out how to stage the ending. And it's surprisingly difficult to stage that trick of them falling through the dirt without showing the bottom of the dirt. That was actually Mac's solution. This part where they are asleep, I had initially, you would see the line underneath them, and then they would fall through it. But that was too literal, and it sort of broke the spell. And so, like, I spent weeks trying to figure out how to do that, and Mac eventually just came up with this brilliant thing where he was like, just make it the top of the page. And I was so upset. But it was, stuff like
and I don't get a sticker for anything.
only royalties.
The triangle is so beautifully minimal. Was that one as long as the other one?
I As a story, I mean, it didn't, you know, it was not, the whole thing was not that much faster than the other ones, because it was a real effort to make it that minimal.
Right, minimal takes longer.
It was, yeah, it was, we were really, like, for these stories, we think of them as very elemental stories, both elemental in their characters, but also in how they work. And so figuring out kind of how these stories work took some time. And we spent a lot of time, even before writing them, just talking about these characters. So that's why there are going to be 3 books. We have lots of stories about them. This was the first one that we set down, but there was a lot of work figuring out who these characters were before we started even working. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So Sam and Dave dig a hole. I'm a librarian for grades 4 and 5, and to show them what a Caldecott means,
yeah,
I read it with just the words.
Yeah.
And I say, okay, now I'm going to read it with the pictures. And if you heard the room of kids that way, they're like, no!
Yeah.
But my question to you is, obviously you wrote it. Thank you. Did you actually had this vision in your head of what you wanted?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was written with all of that visual relationship baked into it. And yeah, as I said, I don't get a sticker. No, John and I were at breakfast together, and we were talking about books that would move up or down because of just the trim size being tall like this. And we decided down was a lot more interesting than up. And I started talking about, you know, John and I both were kids who dug holes looking for treasure as a kid. And I was like, what if they keep missing it? And John started sketching on a napkin. And we sort of figured out how this book was going to work at that breakfast. And then I went off and wrote it. Exactly how to execute that. The fact that the kids were missing treasures, and the fact that they didn't end up in the same place as they started. That was up to John to figure out what that visually looked like. But that visual relationship was in the manuscript.
Yeah, initially we decided that they were going to be missing a whole bunch of stuff, like pirate ships and dinosaur bones and all that kind of thing, and I was really excited to get all these different things to draw. But then it turned out that it was very hard to decide what was going to be worse to miss. You know what I mean? If they have to be missing worse and worse things to escalate the joke, is it worse to miss a T-Rex than it is to miss a pirate ship? Like, what's the funnier escalation? And the first thing they always missed was a diamond because it was very clear as a silhouette. And then as soon as I thought, I was just like, well, it's much clearer if they just keep missing bigger and bigger diamonds. And then it's really funny if they're all cut and finished. But it's like a video game that way, right? It's like
and video games is a big influence.
Yeah, this is basically a lot of these triangles the same way. Both of us grew up playing Nintendo games and these side scrollers sort of walking around from castle to castle digging side holes, and that's what these books owe a lot to, is that's kind of dynamic. But yeah.
So play lots of video games, kids. We're gonna be.
Trailer is awesome.
Oh, thanks.
So we're going to be sticking around, signing books, but if you had a question that you didn't get answered, feel free to come up and ask. But thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it, and thanks to the Lightning Store for having us. One of our favorite bookstores in the whole country and the whole world, so it's good to be here. Thanks. Thank you.
Is that still on? Like if I stand up, am I in it?
I think she turned it off.
She turned it off.
Well, we're going to get a book.
That's a poster, and then there's 2 books in there.